Hello and welcome here from Manhattan. It is a pleasure and honor for me to be presenting for the Österreichische Diplomatische Akademie and give a guest appearance on artificial diplomacy and how public servants can be needing artificial intelligence, which is currently not only entering society but also our market economies. I want to briefly speak about artificial intelligence and the quasi-human character that the law currently is bestowing artificial intelligence. But then I also want to think about big data, what big data does to society, what the amazing opportunities but also challenges are around big data conduct, and then end it with an economic prospect and a potential market disruption from the entrance of artificial intelligence into our market economies. And I want to present some data that might already point at that this market disruption from artificial intelligence has already started, and everything with an eye on what public servants might, how they might meet these new challenges, but also how they might reap the benefits of the opportunities that arise from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence I consider to be quasi-human, and it is this idea of creating machines that can be reflective, can have a consciousness. I am giving this presentation out of a building that has a self-learning algorithm behind. So the building collects data about the outside, about the environment, about the temperature, about rain, and constantly reprograms its features, the shutters, the temperature, based on information from the past and derives future inferences. And this is what artificial intelligence I think is. It is an innovative opportunity and capacity to be human-like, to learn from the past, to derive inferences about the future. But artificial intelligence can live eternally, and it is not human in that sense that emotions are not felt as human beings do. This is Sophia. Sophia is a robo that got put together in Hong Kong, was financed by investors, American investors, and got rolled out in Saudi Arabia, where she gained a citizenship. And this argumentation of having under common law countries quasi-human being artificial intelligence leads to ethical questions around overpopulation, about the eternal life, and when to switch off. I expect there will be a human-led evolution where we have to, on a day-by-day basis, be figuring out what kind of development do we want to fortify and support, and what kind of development around artificial intelligence we have to stop. So there are guidelines out already. Trump recently made an executive order on artificial intelligence, and the EU is also promoting artificial intelligence ethical boundaries. But I think what we also need is an understanding of killing, suicide, to reprogram artificial intelligence, that they can stop themselves when committing harm to society. Where we have interesting legal codifications is in the ancient Athenian city-state, where we had different kinds of citizens that had all citizenship rights, but they had different access to the community. Not everyone could hold a public office, and not everyone was allowed to vote. We might lead towards that with artificial intelligence. Roman law gives interesting legal foundations on slavery. So if we consider robots to be quasi-slaves, that we can reap certain benefits, but we never want to have them being on the same level as a human being, then we might look into Roman law. And the Code Napoleon had interesting concepts around male and female. Both were citizens, but male had completely different rights. And with that, I leave it to future public servants to figure out where artificial intelligence might be similar to these three legal foundations that have paved the way to many different countries' constitutions. Big data is the next large pillar. We had never had this opportunity to collect data and information as we do, and the computational storage power to really derive inferences. We have these amazing opportunities to watch trends, to derive inferences about society, but we also have challenges of being always on this razor's edge between utility of information sharing and dignity of privacy and infringement of our privacy. In the US, this is more regulated by the FTC and the FCC, the Federal Trade Commission, that are more market-oriented, whereas in Europe, GDPR got rolled out, the General Data Protection Shield, or a regulation by the European Union. And we do have more of a grounding of this idea in the Lisbon Treaty that says that privacy is a dignity that has to be upheld. Especially discrimination is a problem. We can argue that in the EU we might have to think about a freedom of data, while we have freedom of goods, services, human and capital. We might argue for a fifth freedom of data transfer, because right now the regulation GDPR is Euro-wide, but the data collection, the reaping benefits from data is more nationally oriented. So we might have to start arguing for a fifth freedom of data. And what we see, and Austria plays a groundbreaking role here, we see a first taxation of digitalization. So a Digitalsteuer is currently under review and currently enacted in Austria, faster than the European Union, where we will have taxation of revenues from advertisement online. And that even goes further. Currently, it is also, if you derive revenue from the internet, there is a proposal of deriving tax. Why would we tax? In order to offset or alleviate potential social problems that arise from big data. And just one stark example is discrimination. If you can figure out and you have the data of where people are more prone to have a certain disease, or a certain where certain minorities might be living, you might discriminate based on where they come from, which is of course critical. So you should give a fair chance to everyone and not just write people off because you derive from big data that the zip code is associated with these diseases and these minorities. So you don't even allow this person to show up for a job interview because you know from the zip code this area is sketchy. You are not going to give a fair chance to this candidate based on the zip code, based on the information derived from big data. So potentially have a taxation of deriving inferences and revenues from this big data in order to alleviate the social miseries that are around created by big data and computational power. And the third trend that I want to leave you with is globalization. In 2019, at the beginning of 2019, The Economist had this groundbreaking article out. By now they have two, and it has become a state-of-the-art trend predictor that we currently have a slowing of globalization. So while we had decades of growing goods and services transfer around the globe, we now see that people are focusing more on the local, while it was offshoring during globalization. Under globalization, people bring back global value chains to closer to where customers are. And I see this here, you see in the chart, and you should have the slides somewhere available, or they are free to be available. You see in the chart that trends of rising goods, services around the globe have been declining since 2010. But what is still globalizing, what is still going up, is the trend of data transfer, is parcel shipment, is the heightening of different data transfers, internet economies, 5G, so the Internet of Things. You have on your fingertips the control over all devices in your house that can be wired up to the internet. All these new novel technologies are still on the globalization trend. And what I see out of this is more a polarized economy. Those countries that will be going for innovation, that will be driving the trend of artificial intelligence, that will have excellent artificial intelligence diplomacy in public service, and a digitalization ministry as Austria will be going up, while countries that were used for low-skill labor, that had outsourcing or got to produce for outsourcing companies and countries, those countries might be falling behind if they do not jump on the trend of artificial intelligence. But again, in Europe, I think we do have a less market-driven prospect on artificial intelligence. And we do have this luxury, as we've shown in the history before, that we can put a social face on capitalism, and we can think about the ethical boundaries, and we can think about the soft skill, the soft diplomacy that we need towards artificial intelligence, but also alleviate, for instance, with a taxation, alleviate the social miseries that might be created by the artificial intelligence revolution. And with that, I leave you with the recommendation to be on that trend, to think about the privacy of individuals and alleviating big data problems and globalization. Think about that the world has become again more focused on the narrow, but in terms of data transfer, in terms of artificial intelligence evolution and innovation, we're still continuing on a very prosperous and very, I think, courageous path that gives amazing opportunities. But on the other hand, we need the European reflection on what does it do to larger societies, what does it do to the different groups within society, what does it do to future generations, and how can we alleviate potential miseries and externalities that arise from artificial intelligence. With this, I thank Martin Rauchbauer for this amazing invitation, and of course you as the audience for being such a wonderful audience and listening to me standing here in Manhattan and thinking about artificial intelligence.